We've all been on the Vanquish Soul hype train for quite some time now, and there have been quite a plethora of different variants of the deck that have popped up and seen competitive play. Now, the deck has been performing exceptionally well, but what if I were to tell you that there are more ways of playing the deck than what you had initially thought about? And one of the ones we're going to be exploring today is LIBROMANCER Vanquish Soul. This is a interesting deck list, to say the least. I think this is going to be very, very fun. I've got a few replays lined up to sort of go over it, but what is the general idea, right? Well, the general idea is that, first of all of your LIBROMANCERs are of the correct attributes other than Geek Boy, right? So Geek Boy's wind, but for the rest of them, you've got fire, you've got earth, you've got dark, right? So you got all of these, all of the attributes that match. They're all super searchable as well. So you're able to consistently get attributes to hand. And what the deck also does is it provides you with a shitload of bodies on board, so you can actually expand into your extra deck significantly more than you otherwise would have, utilizing things like the fire and the Geek Boy and things like that, and the agent that will freely special summon themselves from the hand simply by revealing a Libro monster or a ritual monster in general. So all you need to do is fetch one of your ritual monsters, which you run a plethora of and tons of ways of getting into them, so that's easy enough. And then you're able to just freely spam at your LIBROMANCERs for the rest of the game. Fire searching you monsters, Geek Boy searching you spells and traps, which then searches you monsters, and the agent adding LIBROMANCERs from graveyard back to hand. The common theme being adding monsters to hand to make sure you've got all of these additional attributes. And then you're also able to use things like the Doombroker or these powerful trap cards as well to generate additional interruption. You've got your Fireburst for OTK potential. So there's actually quite a lot going on. Is it the most competitive list in the world? Probably not. However, it is definitely a very different way of playing it, and it's a very fun way of playing it in my opinion. I really enjoyed going through all the various plays that makes this deck work. And yeah, I would recommend, if you have the LIBROMANCER cards, give this a shot, because it is definitely, I think it's a better way of playing LIBROMANCER, but it's a slightly worse way of playing Vanquish Soul, in my opinion. That's sort of my take on it. But anyways, I've got some gameplay to sort of discuss the deck, some of the cool little plays, some of the combos and things, and then we'll do a deck profile at the end. So if you're interested in this style of content, of course, make sure you're subscribed so you can catch new stuff every single day. We are that close to hitting our annual goal for subscribers here. I don't think that's going to be a problem for us at all. I think we're going to crush it, and then we're going to set a new goal for next year. So absolutely, if you want to be part of that, you want to help us reach that milestone, make sure you subscribe off of this video, like the video if you actually enjoy watching it, and let's get into the gameplay. Alright, getting into game number one here. Going second, of course, but the Bestial Rebellion being activated by our opponent lets us know that Maxi here is going to be very effective, assuming it resolves, and luckily for us, our opponent on this occasion did not have anything to negate it. Now, this is going to be a very sort of one-sided replay. I just wanted to show off some of the combos and plays and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play the game and see what happens. So we're going to start with Magician Souls. We're going to mill out the Magician of Chaos, summon itself. We're going to go E-Telly, then we're going to play Geek Boy to the field. Geek Boy then grabbing us Origin Story, and we've already got the field spell as well. Field spell grabbing LIBROMANCER Fire. Origin Story then going to grab ourselves a Displaced from the deck. Now we're able to use the Magician Souls, and I love this specifically about this interaction. We're able to drop 2 cards to draw 2 as well. Being met with a Magnometer, banishing our Magician of Chaos, I guess, whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. I guess they're just trying to get some advantage while they can. We're going to draw 2, drawing in the Small World and Preparation of Rites. Preparation of Rites is the perfect card because it lets us grab our Doombroker. Now, because we have a Ritual in hand, we can special summon out the LIBROMANCER Fire, and this is when we can start amassing resources and start amassing our attributes in hand. We're going to link off into IP Mask Arena, only because we want to put the Geek Boy into the graveyard so we can summon out the agent and use agent's effect to return Geek Boy back to hand. It's one more card in hand. We can immediately then special summon it out to the field as well. We're going to use Small World here. We are going to reveal the Xiaogen in deck. We're going to drop the Fire, grabbing ourselves the Razen. Razen then on normal summons going to get searched in our deck for the other copy of our Worm. Then of course we're going to reveal it, summon it out to the field as per usual. Using the effect of Caesar, we're going to punch Razen back to the hand to summon out Caesar to the field. And looking at this board, this is going to be incredible damage. Access Code Talker coming out over the IP Mask Arena, boosting up to 4,300. Banishing Mask Arena from grave, popping the Magnamut, and that is lethal. So that is some of the combo potential and the extra deck access that the LIBROMANCERs get you access to. You can combo off like crazy, spam monsters out onto the field. It does help you play through a certain level of interruption as well. It's not, again, it's not like the strongest strategy in the world. You're not going to be able to break unbreakable boards, right? That just doesn't happen. However, you can play through 1 or 2 interruptions on a fairly consistent basis depending upon where they hit you. But yeah, all of that combo potential just adds so much more aggression to the Vanquish Soul strategy, helps patch a few weaknesses, and it doesn't hurt that you're able to generate so many cards in hand that you're able to meet your attribute requirements very, very easily. So that's it for game number 1. Let's get into game 2. Alright, getting into game 2 here. Again, going second. I was pretty unlucky when it came to these particular coin flips in this play session. We're going to go boot sector launch them. Look, basically, we're up against Dragon Link, and this is part of what I wanted to emphasize from the previous replay. I'm just going to fast forward through this turn for the most part. The point that I made in the previous replay is that there is a certain level of interaction and certain level of disruption that this deck can play through, right? It's not invincible, it's not going to play through the most powerful boards on the planet, and we're going to see an example of that here because we're up against Dragon Link, right? And what does Dragon Link do? They summon out some of the most fearsome end boards in the entirety of Master Duel. So we're going to get a glimpse at one of those. Of course, the LP coming out here, continuing to just search and add and grind and summon and recycle and all of these crazy things that Dragon Link does so effectively. Now coming towards the end of their board, they're going to go into the Delindrous Dragon. Using then Striker Dragon, they're going to pop the Delindrous to recycle back the Recharger. This is a pretty cool play. I like this. Not everyone plays Delindrous anymore, but the people who do play Delindrous can make this combo work, and I love it. Gonna summon out the Tracer. Delindrous then uses its effect to come back as well. Link 5 into the Borderland Dragon. They've got Tracer on board, so they're able to use the Borderland to negate the Cypher to bring back the Recharger. Now gonna Synchro for 8 into the Borreload Savage Dragon. Borreload Savage Dragon, of course, going to equip a Masquerade from Grave. Cypher then gonna banish itself from the graveyard, adding Levianeer back to the hand from the graveyard. They're then gonna summon Levianeer by banishing 3 Darks, looping a card out of our hand back to the deck, and ending their turn. This is, as far as Dragon Link goes, a pretty fearsome board, and we will be having a look at Dragon Link with the new support very, very soon. But this is just one of those examples of a deck and a situation where you simply can't make it work, right? We are going to go E-Telly in response to the Maxi. We're going to summon out the Geek Boy here. Geek Boy, of course, can activate, trying to search our deck for a card. They're going to go Branded Regain, bringing back the Magnomet here, actually allowing us to search. We're going to go for Maxi in response to the Regained. He is going to let that happen because he only plans on summoning once, maybe twice during this turn if he plans on using the Borderlands effect. Grabbing the Field Spell then to our hand. Magnomet then going to search the deck during the end phase. We're going to go First Appearance, grabbing the Doombroker from the deck to the hand. We're going to go Libromancer Fire here, summoning it out to the field. Libromancer Fire then going to search our deck for the Agent. They're not actually using up their negates here early on. We're going to go Agent now as well. We're going to use Small World. Small World getting hit by Ash Blossom. Very unfortunate. That does really, really sting, because I was kind of banking on that taking up a Borderlands negate potentially. A Borreload negate. And again, there's just, from this point on, there is nothing that we could possibly do into this board. It's just too much control. It's one of those situations, we would have had a chance there, and the reason I sort of used Small World there is if that was negated by Borreload, we maybe would have been in a different situation, but trying to contend with Borreload and Borderlands still past that point would have been exceptionally difficult. So yeah. There you go. Unfortunately, not able to swing with the high-level, high-tier, high-table decks of the metagame, but it is still definitely very decent, and it was able to play a little bit underneath their control. Let's get into game number 3. Alright, getting into game number 3 here, of course, we're going to be using the... going second, again, I just couldn't win a coin toss to save my life here. You'd think I wanted to go second. You really don't. You want to be going first. You want to be setting up your trap cards. You want to be setting up your control, right? And that's totally fine. They're going to go for Trident and pass. Now, again, this doesn't look like a very fearsome board, and you're right in assuming that it isn't. However, what the Zodiac deck typically relies upon quite heavily is its hand traps. So we have to assume that he's playing Trident here pretty confidently, because he's got 1, 2, maybe even 3 cards in his hand that he can also use. We're going to go for E-Telly then, summoning out Geek Boy, of course, from the deck. Geek Boy gets searching. We're going to grab Story, Origin Story here, of course, being met with Duel and Lockbird. Duel and Lockbird is one of the most sort of detrimental cards you can play against a deck like Vanquish Soul or Libromancers, never mind both of them together. However, Origin Story at the very least gives us a little bit of counterplay. We are going to go Displaced here, Stake Your Soul, then going to reveal the Libromancer Fire in hand, summoning out the Razen from the deck. Razen swinging in the Dryden, forcing him to use his effect at a suboptimal time, which we can then respond to remove the Dryden from the field, which is why we did it in this order. Of course, we weren't able to search with the Razen anyway, so we might as well use its pop effect. We're going to swing for 18, that's totally fine. In phase 2, we're going to play the Rock of the Vanquisher, and then we're going to summon out the Geek Boy, just to make sure we have a Libromancer on field. Because the thing about Zodiacs, right, is Zodiac, it doesn't really matter what he's mixing it with. They need their normal summon, and they're quite dependent upon the card that they initially play. If that card resolves, then they can be quite effective and quite abhorrent to deal with. They're going to go for the Albion here, Milling Branded Sword, which is interesting. They're going to now summon out Kit. We're going to go for Libromancer Displaced. This allows us to bounce Geek Boy back to hand to steal his Tri-Brigade Kit until the end of the turn, and our opponent was not one bit happy with that, and they decided, fuck that, it's game. Again, super quick and easy one. There wasn't a ton of really sort of great replays. A lot of people are in a position now in this metagame where if they're not able to play their full combo, they just instantly surrender. So there was an awful lot of surrender wins as well with this type of deck, because especially when you're playing Vanquish Soul, right? Normal Summon Razin, and like 30% of people instantly scoop because they just don't want to play through Vanquish Souls. So yeah, again, not exactly a ton going on here with these games in particular. It is a deck that you're probably going to have to pick up yourself to play around with a little bit. It's not, again, I'm not going to try and sell it as top tier, but it is definitely very, very fun to play with. Let's get into the actual deck profile and we'll talk more about the cards and the plays themselves. And here is the deck list. So we're going to break this down and sort of cover it off card for card here. We're going to break it down into different segments, right? First things first, we're going to talk about the Vanquish Soul cards. I'm not going to linger on these guys too long because I've made a plethora of videos about these guys already. So we've got the triple Razin, of course, double Mad Love, we got the double Xiao Long. We have one Borger and one Caesar. One Borger and one Caesar purely because we're playing a 50 card deck. You're not always going to have access to a Vanquish Soul monster in your opening hand. So these guys can feel a little bit inconsistent sometimes. So we were playing them with one each because we don't really want to see them in our opening hands every single game. Then we got 3 Stake Your Soul, of course. We've got then the 1 Snow Devil and the 1 Dust Devil. So that pretty much covers off all of the Vanquish Soul cards. Again, if you want a more detailed breakdown of what all the Vanquish Soul cards do, I have other videos on the channel for that, one of which I will link at the end of this one on the screen. In regards to the Libromancer cards then, Libromancer cards, I'm going to include the Magician Souls engine because it's kind of the same thing. Basically, we've got the double Geek Boy, triple Fire, we've got a double Agent, which and a lot of people only play this guy at 1. I personally like him at 2. I'll talk about why in just a minute. We've got the 1 Doombroker, 1 Fireburst, a triple Preparation of Rites, which is very, very important. Double Signet Mining because your fire so your fire basically is Cyburst, which is pretty important. Then you've got the double First Appearance, triple Origin Story, and then your 1 Displaced and 1 Intervention. So let's talk more about the Libromancer card specifically. So all of the monsters, the main deck monsters, the non-rituals I should say, all have a common effect, where if you have a ritual monster in hand, you can reveal it to special summon them. So Geek Boy, Fire, and Agent all have that effect. Geek Boy, on special summon, will search your deck for a Libromancer spell. Fire will search your deck for a Libromancer monster, and Agent, once per turn, can target a Libromancer card in grave and add it back to hand, but if it was a spell or trap, you have to place a card from hand back to deck. So basically, searches a spell, searches a monster, and grabs a card back from grave. Again, and the attributes are very important. We've got Fire and we've got Earth. Wind isn't too useful, but Fire and Earth, exceptionally useful. That's why we play Agent at 2. Not only is it a very decent card because you're able to quite consistently get access to your ritual monsters, but the fact that it's an Earth monster as well sort of covers up for some of the weaknesses of the Caesar Valius in this particular version, gives you more access to Earths more consistently. Then you've got your ritual monsters, basically. We've got the Libromancer Doombroker, which primarily you're not going to be summoning these guys, honestly. They're really good to have in hand because, of course, their attributes, number 1, and number 2, they are what allow you to special summon out all of your upper Libromancers. But on occasion, you do want to summon them, especially the Doombroker. So this guy, basically, once per turn, you can set a Libromancer trap directly from deck to field, which is automatically really good because the trap cards are very powerful. So this guy is basically able to set an interruption directly from the deck. So that's pretty awesome. Fireburst is more of an aggressive card. Basically, if this was ritual summon using a monster in the field, it can't be destroyed by battle, and any damage it inflicts to your opponent's doubled. It can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, and it can boost itself up by 200 attack every time it battles, basically. So this card's pretty fucking nuts. It's really, really aggressive. Incredible damage it can do. So yeah, it's kind of useful for that, but primarily speaking, it's here because it's a fire and it's a ritual monster, so it enables all of the rest of your Libromancer plays. But do bear in mind, you do have the option to summon these cards. Speaking of which, we also have the Illusion of Chaos and Magician Souls. Illusion of Chaos and Magician Souls primarily are here because they can't really brick your engine primarily in any significant way. Illusion of, if you draw both together, sure, right? That's unfortunate. Not the end of the world, but unfortunate. But usually if you draw one or the other, it's not that bad, right? If you draw Illusion of Chaos will activate to return itself back to deck to grab you Magician Souls. If you open Magician Souls, then you don't even need to do that part. You can just send this guy directly from deck to grave. Now, why exactly are we doing that? Well, Magician Souls, first and foremost, can special summon itself to the field simply by sending a level 6 or higher spellcaster from deck to grave. That is, of course, your Illusion of Chaos. Magician Souls then can drop 2 spells or traps from your hand or field to the graveyard, and you get to draw that number of cards. That's especially useful in this deck because there's a lot of cards in this deck that hang around after they've really been used, right? So the field spell, for example, on activation searches a Libromancer monster. While it does technically have the ability to ritual summon, that's not priority number 1, so you can often forego that for the additional draw. Origin Story, it sets a Libromancer spell or trap directly from deck to field, and then the rest of its effect is pretty much useless. So again, another card you can just drop for free. So it basically, Geek Boy and Magician Souls means the Magician Souls is almost guaranteed to give you an additional draw too, which is very useful in any deck that requires significant hand advantage, especially Vanquish Soul. You need to have attributes in hand. For attributes to be in your hand, you need to have cards. We have the free Preparation of Rites, which searches any of your rituals, of course, really consistent access, not once per turn, not limited in any way, and again, you can drop your additional copies off Magician Souls if you really need to. So the 3 copies of Preparation of Rites is fucking awesome because it means that you can fill in any hole you may be missing. If you open up all 3, you just get to search all 3 rituals, right? And all 3 rituals serve their own purposes in hand. They are revealable, they've got attributes. Illusion of Chaos, of course, has the inherent +2. So yeah, you can't really go too wrong with Preparation of Rites here. Double Signet Mining, purely because it searches your deck for the Libromancer Fire. Libromancer Fire, of course, searching for a monster on summon, means that you're able to chain summons, chain resources, chain advantage, which is pretty key. Small World, because it's Small World, you get to grab any card in your deck, using any card in your deck if you're right about your lanes. A lot of people ask me to go really in-depth about this card. I really sort of wish that I had it planned the way that you guys think I have it planned. I don't go into a deck and like meticulously schedule out or plan my Small World lines. In like 99% of situations, as long as you use your brain, you're able to get what you want from a given situation. Or at the very least, and something that a lot of people also get wrong about this card, is a lot of people look at a card like this and think like, okay, he's playing Small World to get Razan, right? Okay, so what are my lands in the Razan? What are this? I'm like, no, I'm playing this card because it lets me get access to anything, right? It's the versatility that Small World enables that I'm such a massive fan of. It's the fact that I can search for a hand trap, I can search for a particular card, I can search for Magician Souls or Fireburst or Libromancer Fire or Razan, right? Depending on what the situation mandates, and I can make a plan using what Small World gives me access to. So I don't go in meticulously planning Small World to give me access to a particular card. On occasion, I'll include a bridge that might get me to a particular card, but very seldomly would you find me going out of my way to make this card better, because it already is really fucking good if you sit and you actually use your brain when you're using it. If you don't fully understand Small World, if you want more advice on how to use it, if you want more advice on generating particular lines, go to the Discord, I'll help you out. We can chat about it, absolutely. Even other people in the Discord can help you out with that as well. But if you don't want to join the Discord and you don't really know how this card works and you don't know about lines, just cut it. Just cut it. You're going to cause yourself more stress than it's worth. Steak Your Soul, of course. Libromancer first appearance. We already sort of talked about this. Basically, on activation, we'll search your deck for a Libromancer monster, which is very, very important. That's basically why we're playing it. But it also has the effect where you can simply ritual summon Libromancer ritual monsters. And that's not limited. That's not once per turn. You can spam out rituals for as long as you have rituals and materials. You don't often use that in this deck, because you would much rather have like your Dark and your Fires in hand to use as revealable materials, both for Vanquish Souls and Libromancers. But it's an option, and it's hard to ignore how powerful the option is. Origin Story will set a Libromancer spell or trap directly from deck to field. The rest of its effect is kind of useless, I'm not going to lie, but it's primarily there because it sets a card, gets you access to anything you want, plus it is sendable off Souls. E-Telly summons out Geek Boy from deck. Really just that simple. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing, except for the trap card. Sorry, we got the Intervention, which will give you essentially an Omni Negate, but you have to control a Libromancer Ritual monster. That's what makes me kind of think about cutting this card, to be perfectly honest, because I don't often have a Ritual monster on board. I would much rather have my Rituals in hand. So because of that, I've been very tempted to cut this card and just maybe either play just the 1 Displaced or 2 Displaced, because Displaced is really fucking good as well. Basically, you bounce a Libromancer from field back to hand, and you steal an opponent's monster, which is really fucking good. So I'm a big fan of Displaced. I would consider cutting Intervention entirely to either play 2 of this or to just sort of cut a card, right? Because you could cut this down closer to 40 if you really wanted to. For example, if you did want to play Small World, you could cut Small World down. You could likely cut down Geek Boy to 1, which sounds odd, but again, it's not really a card you want to be seeing in your hand very consistently because it's not a very useful attribute. There's plenty of cards you could cut down to try and get closer to 40 if you really wanted to. It's just not a priority of mine. And that's pretty much the whole deck, if I'm being honest. The rest of the cards are just hand traps, you know, your Maxi, your Ash Blossom, Call by the Grave, Crossout Designator, and then of course your Vanquish Soul cards, which we've covered, but we'll cover off more in depth in another video that you're going to see right above me. So that covers off this deck. In terms of the extra deck is super generic. You've got your Dryden into Zeus plays, or your Borbo into Zeus plays for your rank 4s, because your Libromancer Fire's a 4, Razen's a 4, Madlove's a 4. So you can get easy enough access to the Zeus or into the Dryden. I very seldom do it, but you can. Triple Rock, mandatory of course when you're playing Vanquish Soul. And then the rest of this is generic, just Link Climbing. Again, you actually do use this a little bit more in this deck than I would normally do in other decks, because the amount of spamming you can do, and you don't have any particular extra deck targets you're super fond of other than the Rock. So being able to go Masquerena into Unicorn in the access code for game is actually quite a consistent play that you will do in this deck. Access code is a game ender in this. It's something you will actually aim to summon, which is a refreshing change on it just being something you toss in for the 1 in a million. So yeah, that's the whole deck. Again, if anyone has any questions, any queries, any issues at all, of course you can leave them in the comments below. If you want to learn more about the Vanquish Soul cards in particular, look above my head. You will see a link to another video going into those cards in particular in more depth. But that's pretty much everything I have to say here today. If you've got this far and you're not subscribed yet, why not fix that? It doesn't cost you anything, and you get to see more content every single day. Like the video if you actually enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.